You're telling me that every single one of these speed skaters that you coach and they've gotten all these records and stuff, and you're telling me that the secret to them doing that is because you're able to train them to get into the zone on demand? And I'm like, that's cool. And I get it. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners that are listening in right now thinking like, well, that's great. Well, that's cool. I mean, that's speed skating. What does that have to do with golf? That was my same thought process. And I'm like, I tell you what, if what you're telling me is true, and if this can apply to the game of golf, oh my goodness, this will change the game of golf overnight.
Golf Smarter number 755. Bo Watson and Shannon Shuskey on their free webinar, How to Get in the Zone with a Flip of a Switch.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Greene.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Bo.
Hey, Fred. Glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on. Last time we talked to you was to launch off the Consistent Golf Summit, which was a spectacular 3-day event of just incredible teachers every hour. How did it go? I haven't talked to you since then.
Man, there was so many things that went really well about that. And so it was a blast. We had 18 speakers, and we also had a little over, I think, 13,000 golfers that tuned in for the 3 days. So it was a lot of, pivoting really quick, because it was a live event that we had, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of people had a lot of breakthroughs. I still get testimonials to this day. Here we are, what are we, like 4 months later, and we're still getting testimonials like in emails all the time saying, Bo, thank you so much for hosting that. I went out the other day and I just shot my new lifetime low round, and we're getting so many of those. So it was a blast.
Oh, that's fabulous. Well, you had a lot of high quality teachers. We've had Jim Lights?
James Seekman. Yeah. James Lights.
No, on the show. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Lights. Yeah. We had him on the podcast as well from the summit. He was excellent. Mm-hmm. So who are some of the people that were teaching again?
So we had James Lights. We had James Seekman. Yeah. We had David Orr, my mentor. Oh man, we had Chris Manson of Connexit. We also had Scott Hamilton, really well-known guy on the PGA Tour to a lot of PGA Tour players. We also had, Scott Fawcett with Decade Golf. And yes, there was some really good guys like Adam Young. He wrote the book, the practice manual, great book. I always tell people, if I were to ever write a book, it would have been what Adam wrote. So we always laugh about that. So he did a great job.
That's great.
We even had Adam Bazalgett of Scratch Golf Academy. A lot of people know that name because he's got a really good platform out there with Scratch Golf Academy. And so he came in, did a lot of the technique side of things, and he did a great job with that. So we had all the bases covered. It was really unique because when we were talking about this in April, the whole principle or concept behind the summit was, look, we know from the research, there's over 500,000 golfers that are quitting the game every year due to frustration. And we also found that also through research that are showing that only 23% of golfers are going out and actually seeking to find an instructor, which means that, hey, that's over 75, 77% of golfers that are going onto YouTube, various channels online, magazines, you name it. And we both know that if you don't know like what you're looking for, you can go down a rabbit hole very fast, and then you end up worse than when you first started. Right?
Absolutely.
And so we thought, well, you know what? Let's create something where we bring in the expert in each specific niche. And we even had Dr. Kline. If you're not familiar with Dr. Kline, he's the guy that him and Chris Como, they teamed up. This is where Chris Como got his big start in the game. And then that also led to him working on Tiger Woods. So we had Dr. Kline with biomechanics. So we had all these guys like David for putting, James Seekman for wedge play, Scott Hamilton for driver. We had Adam Young for practice, and we had Dr. Kline for biomechanics. And we had, Chris with, fitness and all these things, right? And it was like, look, here's the expert in this specific area of the game. rather than go down these rabbit holes, come to the source and get the answer directly from the source. And that's what we did with the summit. And it was a huge success.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do for years with the podcast too.
Love it. You got some great stuff on there. Going through the archives with you, it's been impressive. And it's not, I guess you would say it's no secret, or it's not something that I would not expect or anything like that. But I mean, the success that you've gotten with the downloads you're getting each month, it's no surprise. So that just shows to the quality that you're bringing on here. So great job.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. But that's part of why I was excited to get you on, because you were doing similar things on game improvement that I've been trying to accomplish for a long time, but you come to it from a very different place. You're a PGA teaching professional. I'm just a hack going, I wonder if this guy's any good. I mean, who the best people are. You go to the PGA summits and you know who's out there. So I really appreciate it. Did Golf Smarter community respond to the Consistent Golf Summit?
Yeah.
Please?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Oh, yeah, we did. We have several emails from listeners on the show. So we were very grateful for them. And I think I even forwarded a few of them to you. But yeah, we were blessed to have this community come on board. And it was a pleasure having them.
And you did the summit. The timing was remarkable because it was right at the beginning of the lockdown during the pandemic. And so people were at home looking for, and golf courses were closing at that time. And I know since they've been reopening, business has been booming for every golf course I talk to. They're like, we can't take this many people, but we're not complaining. They're not sure what to do. But your timing was excellent in that you were doing this just as people were starting to do all this massive search. Like, I need something to do, and I need something to do with other people in my life that are locked up in the house. We got to get outside somehow. So golf is doing great.
Yeah. When we were looking back at it, it's like, oh man, we did this so perfect and everything else with like the timing.
Amazing.
But you got to understand, we had this plan since December of 2019. And what was funny, we originally were going to do the summit the week of the Players Championship. And so when the whole thing was starting to come out, February, and we're looking at it and we're like, do we move forward with this? Do we not? And we're like, you know what, let's push it back a month and maybe it'll subside a little bit. Well, after a couple of weeks, we find out Players Championships like getting canceled, the Masters is getting canceled. And then we're sitting there thinking like, oh, do we move forward with this or not? And then, I just went out on a limb and said, you know what, we're going to move forward with it. And thank God I did, because it was a blast.
What were some of the big surprises for you in the summit that, as far as what the instruction was? Anything jump out?
As far as like things that I learned, I'll tell you what, I was blown away by Dr. Kwan's presentation. He gets really technical in the beginning of his presentation, but I'll tell you what, if the average golfer, if they stuck around to about the 35, 40 minute mark, he starts providing these drills, and I'm watching this like, oh, this is genius. And it's interesting because I actually talked with him off air, and he didn't say it in his presentation. But what was interesting is that when you go through these drills and you actually complete all 4 phases of what he's walking his players through, he said that on average, the player will see about 20 yards gain in distance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Average. It means a lot longer and some shorter too.
Yep. And we're only talking about just doing stuff by mechanics. We're not talking like, we had super speed golf on the summit as well. I was really glad that Mike and Kyle could join us. Mike did the presentation, and, it's a great speed training program, and it's phenomenal. Love it. But I'll tell you what, if you want the ultimate dynamite, do Dr. Kwan's biomechanics drills, and then you combine that with super speed. Oh, watch out.
Wait, what's super speed?
So super speed is a very popular training aid that was developed by Mike and Kyle, and they're basically speed sticks. And the whole principle behind it is you take 3 sticks. The first one is very light. I think it's 20%. The second one is 10% lighter. And then the third one, I believe, is like 5% heavier than like what your normal club weight would be. And then you just go through and you're swinging as hard as you possibly can. But it's a proven system that I believe adds about, I think it was something like 5 to 8 miles per hour, something like that. And then it's not uncommon to see somewhere between 20, 30 yards of that system. So it's fantastic. That's why a lot of tour players carry them.
Amazing. So is the Consistent Golf Summit still available? I mean, obviously you did it. It was a one shot, but can people still get to it?
Absolutely. So we're really excited about that because we recently, up to recent, we actually had it on the shelf. So we launched it. It went live. But, we're like, dang, this thing was a great product. And if we wish we could like do it live every week, but we just can't do that. Right. But thankfully, we got the recordings and we have what's called an all access pass. And so we are actually relaunching this thing and to where people have a few days to where they can go in, watch everything free, just like all these other attendees did. However, it's very limited in time. So they would only have 24 hours to watch each day before it gets locked away. But they'll have that opportunity to go in and watch the content because we're serious about helping golfers. Shannon and I are on a mission. We'll talk about that. But the thing is, we are on a mission. I shared this on the very first page, very first part, and that was, we are on a mission to help 100,000 golfers shoot their new lifetime low rounds. And, the Consistent Golf Summit was a big step in that direction. And that's why we're really excited to relaunch this summit again.
So let me get the details on this. Free for 24 hours. Is it the 24 hours from the moment they sign up, or like you're picking 24 hours that it's going to be free?
It's going to be from the time they sign up. So they would definitely need to be mindful of, hey, when they go in, they're ready to start watching the content because they're only going to have 24 hours. So that's kind of the trade-off.
How many hours of content? It's 14 hours?
So we have roughly, I would say it's between 15 to 20 hours of content.
Oh, wow. So it's a real commitment.
Yeah. So it's 3 days. It's 3 days worth. So, I mean, it's not like you're doing it all at once. So, day one, they'll have day one and they'll have 24 hours to go in and watch day one. And then 24 hours go in and watch day two. And then day 3, they have 24 hours. So, yeah.
So it's not 24 hours to watch all 3 days?
No. That would be like almost impossible.
Yeah, well, listen, I've gotten emails from people saying, I'm doing a road trip and I'm just going to be listening to Golf Smarter for the entire trip. It's like, why would you do that? I can't imagine. My wife won't listen to me that long. Why would anybody want to listen to Golf Smarter over and over and over again? That's your choice. I appreciate it. Thank you. But so this is good. You get day 1 for 24 hours. You sign up for day 2 later and you get 24 hours. Okay. So that makes great sense. All right. And then you've got something really exciting coming up and you've even kind of teased it, which, we're not really sure what you were saying, but we're going to deal with that right after this. This week on Golf Smarter Mulligans, we go back to episode number 160, our first show of 2009, as I sit down next to a driving range with sports psychologist Ben Kline to talk about his study on the effects of mindfulness meditation on the anxious golfer.
Anxiety isn't always bad. Everyone has their kind of zone of optimal performance. Some people actually perform better when they feel stressed, and they look at that anxiety as facilitative. They say to themselves, okay, I got the juice going. Now it's time for me to really focus, and they perform better. But I think for the majority of us, anxiety gets in the way. It causes our muscles to tense up, and even shorten. And if that happens during a swing, who knows where the ball's going to go?
Who knows where the ball's going to go whenever you hit it? I mean, come on.
But
but still.
But I think if you're in the moment and relaxed and have a swing that's a swing rather than a hit, your potential for the outcome that you're looking for is improved.
That's episode 71, featuring the now executive director of the Shivas Irons Society, Ben Kline, being released this Friday. Please subscribe and get brand new episodes for free of Golf Smarter each Tuesday and Golf Smarter Mulligans every Friday, delivered to your favorite app automatically. Bo, just a moment ago, you mentioned Shannon. Who's Shannon? What are you talking about?
Oh, man.
No, I'm kidding. I know, because we've got him online here. But let's talk about Shannon Shuskey's on the line with us. Shannon, welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast.
Hey, Fred. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Good to have you on. We snuck you in because I've had enough of Bo. So, Bo, why don't you make the introduction and tell us why Shannon's joining us today?
Oh, man. It's funny. This started in the summer of 2019. And it's funny because he and we actually go to church together. And we decided to go out to dinner one night. And it was kind of funny because I had no idea what his background was. And we go to dinner. And we're having, a conversation, and we get into some topics. And I find out this guy's a speed skater. And then he's sharing with me the story how he went from speed skating to then he's coaching. And then he's showing me how every single one of his speed skaters were getting into the zone on demand at a flip of a switch. And I'm sitting here watching each of these text messages that he's showing me. Like, are you kidding me? And these are speed skaters that are world champions that he's coaching. He also has coached 2 Olympians. One is won a bronze. He's, goodness gracious, I think he's got 142. Shannon, what is it? 142, national champions?
National champions.
I mean, just stupid numbers, like just mind-blowing. Yeah. And then he also coached, let's see, I think it was 9 players to the world team that had not been done before in U.S. history. And then he breaks his own record 2 years later with 11 more to the team. And so he's showing me and talking through all this. And I'm sitting there with my mouth dropped, like, are you kidding me? Like,
it's a really nice thing to do at the dinner table.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sitting there like, you're telling me that every single one of these speed skaters that you coach, and they've gotten all these records and stuff, and you're telling me that the secret to them doing that is because you're able to train them to get into the zone on demand? And I'm like, that's cool. And I get it. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners are listening in right now thinking like, oh, that's great. Well, that's cool. I mean, that's speed skating. What does that have to do with golf? Well, yeah, that was my same thought process. And I'm like, you know what? I'll tell you what, if what you're telling me is true, and if this can apply to the game of golf, oh my goodness, this will change the game of golf overnight. And I was like, you know what, Shannon, I'm going to put you to the test because I am like literally the world's worst mental head case when it comes to playing this game. And
second, Bob. You're the second worst. Second. Get in line right behind me. Thank you very much.
I was the classic guy. I'll never forget this. Like yesterday, I was sitting in a golf cart and I'm in high school and I'm watching my teammates. And this is the high school, my senior year. This is the high school state regionals. And I'm watching my teammates collapse right in front of me. And I'm watching them like hit horrible shot after horrible shot, missing like putt left and right. And you're probably thinking, well, why am I not out there playing? Well, it just so happened that the week before I tore, I guess like some sort of like tissue or ligament in my left knee, and it prevented me from playing that week. And here I am, I'm watching this nightmare unfold before me. And then sure enough, it comes to reality and we missed the state championship. And what is so important about that part right there is because that was my last shot at trying to get to the state championship and making one last, effort to try to get a scholarship to go play in college. But what a lot of people don't understand or realize is that the reason why I struggled and hit my plateau, I had a lot of success growing up playing junior golf. A lot of success. I won a lot of events, but when it got to high school, I hit a plateau. I hit a wall. And the big reason behind it was because I was a mental head case. I was the classic player that went out and I would go play 3, 4, 5 holes and I'd be 2 or 3 under par. And sure enough, I'd start thinking to myself, hey, this is great. I'm going to be, probably shooting my next new lifetime low around here. And then we both know the train comes off the tracks and then I'm, crawling into the clubhouse at that point. And that was my game. And, I was also the classic player that'd step up on a tee. I've had history on a hole. It's a dog leg right. I'll never forget this. This is number 5 at Sapona Ridge. Always ate my lunch. has water to the right, hazard to the left. And I'll tell you, 75% of the time, I'm going in one of those two. And so I know a lot of listeners listening in, they can relate to this because they have that one hole that always gets them, right? And so I'm sharing all this.
It's always the hole or the club's fault. It's never us.
No.
Ever.
No. And it's funny because we are always the last ones to take responsibility. And
Sure.
And this is something that I still to this day, or no, up until this point that I met Shannon, I always saw this technique. I'm always about technique, getting better. And, I've shared my story on the podcast back in April, talking about my story with David Orr and how he led me down this path to opening my own golf school. And we've had a lot of success. But here I am as an instructor. I'm still struggling teaching players with the mental side of the game. But also, I'm still struggling with myself. Even after the fact, here I am like 30 years old, and I'm still struggling with the same stuff that a lot of players struggle with. And it wasn't until I met Shannon, and he's sharing all this stuff with me over dinner, and I'm like, you know what? If this truly does work on getting speed skaters into the zone, and if this can work for getting golfers into the zone, I'm going to put you to the test. And that's what I did. I go out last year. I play 6 out of 8 rounds under par. But you have to understand, I did not practice one time last year. And if I did, it may have been one time and I hit 20 balls. You can ask my wife. Okay. That's dead honest truth. But I also, when I go to play, I didn't go practice on the range before we played each round. I went out cold turkey. It was like, all right, I'm out of the car. Where's first tee? Let's go. Okay.
Whoa.
And I'm taking all these principles that he shared with me, and I'm putting them to practice my own game. So I go 6 out of 8 rounds under par. My last round in November was play 9 holes. I went 4 under, and I lipped out 3 birdies. And it was at that point that I knew, you know what, this thing works. And not only that, I played at a course up in, what is it called? Sequoia National. It's up in Cherokee, North Carolina. Beautiful mountain course. And you're teeing off from tee boxes that are like 60, 80, 100 plus feet up in the air down these fairways. And there was one particular hole, and this is when I knew that I was going, or I guess you would say I'm rounding the corner, so to speak. I hit from like 100 feet up in the air, and it's a par 5. I clear 2 bunkers, and this fairway is 100 feet below me, and the fairway is only about 15 yards wide. I landed in the dead center. And it was one of those things where you're in the zone, okay? And you get to the ball, and it's one of those moments you just realize, and you look back up at the tee box, and you go, whoa, I just did that. but because that whole thing I shared about like hole number 5, I always ate my lunch, right? It was one of those moments where I was like, wow, this system works. Because I was the one that the old bow, okay, if I would have stepped foot and hit that shot, it would have been in the trees way right because it had so much air time, okay,
Sure.
Or I would have been duck hooked way left and not even have like a second shot on that particular hole. And so it's pretty interesting because after all that, I started sharing it with my students, and students started having some major success. One in particular, I kind of shared last time we were together, was the story of James. James is a guy that consistently shot scores in the 80s, and we've been working together for several months. And what was interesting was no matter what we did, it did not make sense why he was not shooting in the 70s. From a technique standpoint, it did not make sense on paper. Mm-hmm. And finally, I was like, you know what, James, I've been working on this in my own game. I think I want to share this with you. And so I did.
Wow.
Well, guess what? I spent that evening working through the whole thing with him, gave him some things to work on. The very next day, he texts me.
Next day. Yeah, I'm sure it was like, and the next day.
He texts me. He says, hey, Bo, guess what? I was like, I don't know. What'd you do? And he said, I shot 76.
Yeah.
I was like,
awesome.
Wow, that is awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about Shannon the last time you were on. And if people want to go back and hear more about that conversation, that was episode 735. That was in April 7th of 2020. All right. Well, that was quite the lead in. that Shannon, I think we should just boot Bo out of this conversation for a while. But before we do that, it's time for another break. We'll be right back. So Shannon, welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast. It's great
to be here
you.
Finally.
So yeah, right. So speed skater talking golf. Actually, we're all focused on getting in the zone and staying there. But it's getting there that it seems to be the hardest part. We're going to get deep into that. How is it that this speed skating coach? How'd you become a speed skating coach? Where's your story?
So, first off, I actually grew up, I was born severely club-footed. And when I say severe, like it was really, really bad. When I was 2 years old, I had to get special shoes to wear for a whole year for 23 hours a day, and didn't work. And then I had to have reconstructive surgery on both of my feet.
And what exactly, I'm sorry for being ignorant here, what exactly is clubfoot? How does it manifest?
Clubfoot is kind of, it's just, I was born that way. It's almost like instead of my feet being flat on the ground,
right, the
soles of my feet would literally be turned to the inside, almost straight up in the air. That's how bad it was as far as my feet. So it's almost like I was walking on the sides of my feet, literally.
Oh, wow.
And so then I had two doctors do surgery on both of my feet. I was in surgery probably about 6 hours, and I was a 3-year-old baby at the time. And they assured my parents that I wouldn't be able to walk normal or much less run like the other kids and stuff like that. But honestly, the thing is, though, my parents, they prayed desperately and sought out the Lord. And before you know it, here at the age, one of the things that happened was my grandfather took me out on a pier and was fishing, and he was casting it out, and I would be reeling the bait back in. But what happened was I'm sitting there, I've got my cast on my feet, and they're swinging, hanging from the pier, and evidently a fish grabbed the bait and actually pulled me into the water.
Oh, my.
And when I came into the water, I don't know how long I was there, but I do remember this like it is today. I came out of my body, and when I came out of my body, I was looking back at my body, and I was limp, totally limp, no movement whatsoever. And I saw a bright light, and in the bright light, there was a hand that came through and grabbed me. As soon as it grabbed me, that's when I came back to life, so to speak. And then, so after that, following that, that was when I was 3 years old, a huge traumatic experience. But yet at the age 3, I actually started playing soccer. And so when it comes to athletics and stuff like that, it was never just handed to me like on a plate, so to speak. I had to work hard in everything that I did. And I got a saying, work hard beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And needless to say, I still have my cast. This is a podcast. I would actually show you one of the casts slipped off my foot when I was 3 years old, and I have it with me. And
how did you get? I'm sorry for interrupting, but how did you get from being lifted out of the water by white light to playing soccer? I mean,
that was one of the things.
Did you have the casts on your feet?
No, so that was when I was 3 years old. So at age 6, 3 years later, I had fully recovered and walking and running. And despite what the doctors had said, that's what I've done. And actually, the interesting thing, everything that I've done well, I've done with my feet, despite what the doctors have said. Inline speed skated. Yeah, I was national champion in speed skating. I was a record holder in speed skating. And then played soccer, played semi-pro for the Charlotte Eagles. And then also now I'm into cycling, and I race bikes, cycling now. But, all this originated, it came back to where I was doing all this research. And like, for example, the team that I skated for, this is the important part. The team that I skated for example, in 1 year, they had 22 national champions.
Amazing.
And these are the guys that I was racing against day in and day out. Bo mentioned about, in golf, everybody has that dreaded hole, on their home course. They come up to that dreaded hole, and that hole always gets the best of them. Him was at Sequoia Nationals. That particular hole, was his dreaded hole. For me, the start was my dreaded hole, so to speak, for speed skating, coming off the line, starting.
Oh, okay.
I hated it. I couldn't. I was always last off the line, but yet, here's the interesting fact. This is when I started doing my research in the mental side of things, and that is whenever I put my shoes on, and we're all doing starts with shoes on, I'm beating everybody hands down. And so I figured that there was something mentally that was going on to why I couldn't do a start on skates versus a start on shoes. And because of that, in other parts of my speed skating and stuff, where I was missing going to nationals, not making it, and, not being chosen to be on a relay team that might be my only shot at nationals and stuff. And so I started doing research, and then I started putting things together. And that is this, we take Psychology 101. Everybody that's been in college has taken this class, right? Psychology 101. And yet, everybody study Pavlov's dogs. Light comes on, food drops out, the dog starts salivating, and so I started taking this concept and then other concepts and putting it together to be able to trick my body to get in the zone. And so that's one of the things where I ran across, where I started doing these techniques. And so even Phil Nicholson, the king, he's actually said, golf is 90% mental and 10% physical.
And it wasn't his line.
Yeah, exactly.
He was repeating from years before that.
Yeah, and it's not just him. Like, everybody that knows anything about sports will say that this is true in about every sporting arena.
It's probably true.
And so then I started thinking to myself, okay, if this is true, if it's 90% mental and 10% physical, why are we spending 100% of the time on only 10% of the game? And so then I started, doing mental imagery and working with that and everything like that. Now, the interesting thing is the concepts, right brain and left brain, there's a whole sports, like if we're really focusing on technique and stuff like that, that's more of a left brain function. But then when we're working on performance, that's a right brain function. And so everybody that's been recorded at their peak heightened flow state, or what we call in the zone, has been operating on the right brain. And so all that we're pretty much doing is we're triggering, just like Pavlov's dogs, we're conditioning the body to get in the zone. And some people be like, there's no way you can do that. And I could just prove that real simple right now, that this is true. And that is this. Think of your favorite ice cream.
I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah, okay. Think of
such a party
like your favorite. Yeah, no, that's all right, because that happens to everybody. And generally, and what's funny, you say that 90% of the people, I'll take them through this like little thing to where they think of their favorite food and their mouth starts salivating. Well, why is it salivating? It's because we've conditioned our body, for that, right? And so everybody's going through that, and literally all I'm doing is on the mental game is everybody tapping in on conditioning their body to get in the zone. And so I've learned how to do it with using mental imagery and other various techniques. And
all right, so let's go back to your setup there. I screwed it up, but let's go back to ice cream. I'll pretend.
Okay.
So pick your favorite ice cream.
Yeah, you make your favorite ice cream. And so, or how many of you have ever been in a conversation with somebody and you start talking about food and you just start salivating? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Another thing that I can do is take everyone through peeling an orange and eating an orange. And when you eat the orange, about 90% of the people start salivating when they think of or doing mental imagery, eating the orange. And so those are just simple things that we use in condition the body. Now there's other things too, but it would just takes way too long to kind of get in about creating triggers and stuff like that to be able to trigger to get in the zone on demand, like what Bo's talking about. But I shared that with him, and he's sitting there looking at me like a deer in headlights because he's telling me, look, man, I've read all these books. I've read like 25 books, and he's naming all these incredible authors, when it comes to golf and all this. And he goes, and none of them are saying this. And what's interesting too is like one of the ladies that took the course, she is actually a mental toughness coach. And she goes, I've never heard this before. And I've heard the various things, but putting together the way you put it together, I've never heard it. And she's like, man, this works as well. So that's the amazing thing.
That is really amazing. Okay, now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of this. Let's I want to know how to flip this switch, but we're going to do it after this break. Shannon, we all want to get in the zone. We all want to get there. We want to know that we're there, and we want to stay there. And I don't know which is the hardest part of those elements about being in the zone. I know that the times that I've been in a zone,
right,
I recognized it after the fact. I was like, oh, that's what that was. That's why I was so calm. My game was so on point and I didn't lose it, right? Everything was just kind of flowing right through it. But it's afterwards that you recognize this.
Yes.
And now you've been teaching people to flip it on.
So here's, and it's funny, it's like, Teach what's interesting is if you go back and you do like a history search of all the times that you've been in the zone, and all the studies, they say even when it comes to different sports and stuff like that, you're only in the zone 1% to 2% of the time. And so when you think about the golf game, how long does it take a golf game? 3 hours, 2.5, roughly. And sometimes longer, right?
He doesn't play golf, does he, Bo?
Or if you're walking,
3 hours. Where do you play golf? 3 hours. I want to play on your course.
So 1% to 2% of that time, and so generally, the system that Bo and I have come up with is it's the time that you can be in the zone is basically the time that you're swinging the club, going up to swing the club, because that's the most important time, because here's the thing, when you're walking from one ball to the other, the question is, are you playing the game? You might be playing the mental game. You might be trying to be focused or stuff like that. That's not necessarily the part that we're concerned about. However, we do talk a lot about things to overcome. We talk about routines, negative routines, and things like that, how to break negative routines and things that our mind tends to get familiar with, and we start going down that negative path. We do talk about like how to break those and stuff like that. But the most important thing is the focus in between, right before you're getting ready to hit the ball, like your pre-shot routine and stuff like that, and how important that is. A prime example is you look at Tiger Woods. If you take a stopwatch and watch him on his pre-shot routine, it's down to the second every single time. No matter what he's doing, it's down to the second. And that comes down to even having a pre-shot routine. That's all a part of being in the zone because you're confident in doing it. You know that this is what you do. It works. Everything that comes down to even your warm-up, before you get on the golf course, because then you can approach it at your confidence level is going to be at a whole nother level because beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you're ready every single time. So, those are things. And a lot of people don't take advantage of mental imagery or visualization, so to speak. And the awesome thing is like mental training, and Bo coined this phrase. I love it. And that is doing mental reps. In a sense, it's like your 15th club in your bag, doing the mental reps. You can use mental imagery to see success, to motivate you, to perfect your skills and technique, to familiarize with different places, different courses, to set the stage performance. You can also use it to refocus. And so that's just a portion of, that 90% that's mental. We're trying to bring everybody back to, instead of, all right, I'm going to spend all this time at the golf range or with the golf pro. Don't get me wrong, incredible. But yet that's only, again, it can only be 10% of the game when it comes down to when it comes down to it. And that 10% can be totally different depending on who you are on the mental aspect of it. For example, if you are a Michael Jordan or the late Kobe Bryant and you're taking a free throw and it's the NBA championships and, the other team is up by one, and there's only 1 second left in the game, what kind of pressure are you in? And the thing is, it's just a free throw. How many times have they done that? 1,000, 1,000,000 times before that. It's the same distance from the free throw line to the basket, and then from the basket, it's the same height. It's just a free throw. But what happens is we stare our biggest competitor in the face in the morning every time we brush our teeth. And a lot of times, the only pressure that we're feeling is the pressure that we're putting on ourselves. If you're a PGA Tour player, and you're trying to win that money, and it comes down to that last putt, it's still just it might be a 2-foot putt, a 3-foot putt. It's still just a putt. But we bring that, we carry that burden of that pressure. And so being in the zone and doing the mental imagery and stuff like that, tricking that body to get in the zone, it takes all that pressure away. That's one of the things that blew me away when I was getting into this. I could walk into a speed skating meet and no nerves. And see, people have nervousness can create different effects for different people. Some people may throw up under being so nervous. Some people yawn a lot. Some people have to use the bathroom a lot. Some people get shaky and second guess everything. You see what I'm saying? And that was one of the things that took me out of that, was doing this mental imagery and trigger and stuff like that. I just noticed that I walked in and I wasn't nowhere near as nervous as I was. It literally almost dissipated, not even a part of that. And then you hear these things like, oh, they stunk it up. They folded under pressure. He's just a practice guy. He's not a competition player. That verbiage started totally disappearing from the way people talked about me and stuff like that, because I was showing up. I knew that when I stepped up on the line that I was the one to beat. But here's the thing: whether that was true or not, that's a whole nother game. Confidence is a game changer for somebody, because if you're confident, for example, in speed skating, you're not going to second guess that pass. You're not going to second guess moving up. Same thing in golf. You're not going to second guess, it comes when putting. A lot of reason why people miss putts is through indecision. You're not going to second guess that. You're going to be, you're going to go in and when you're going to be confident over the ball to hit that. And so then, when you're second guessing things, the grip on the club is not going to be as tight as it should be, or, the swing's not going to be as full, and those things. So that's the differentiator, bits and pieces of the differentiator that can take place in the golf game. And we've seen huge amount of success with one of the things that Bo had mentioned. We have taken at least over 132 golfers through this, and we've seen huge changes and huge success in everybody's game.
Well, Bo, I was thinking about that Colin Morikawa on Sunday, number 16, when he drove the green. I was thinking that 7-foot putt had to be the most amount of pressure this kid's ever had in his life. And he made it so calm and cool. He just made it look so easy. And it was not an easy putt. It's uphill, right? And there were things about it that just could easily have freaked anybody else out on the planet. So Shannon, turning it on is one thing, but is it turning it on and off and on and off with your swing so you can give yourself a break in between? How does that, or does it, once you turn it on, you can keep it going for the next 3 hours for your round if you're playing, but 4.5 for the rest of us.
Hey, it's a par 3.
3 hours to play the par 3. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to take another time out. We'll be right back. Well, we've reached the halfway point of the baseball season, but no All-Star game this year. This week on our Radio Baseball Cards podcast, we go back to our interview in 1987 with then Baltimore Orioles outfielder Fred Lynn talking about his love of fishing. Here's a taste of what you'll hear.
Here's another Radio Baseball Card. City kid Fred Lynn spent a summer fishing with his grandfather. Now he's become so passionate about it that he's built a pond in his backyard.
When I was 9 years old, I spent the summer with my grandfather in Chicago, and then we went up to Wisconsin.
That's the Radio Baseball Cards podcast. Short stories as told by the greatest baseball players of the 20th century with your host, the late Hall of Famer Don Drysdale. Radio Baseball Cards is free from smarterpodcasts.com and available wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So is it an on and off switch, or is it an on switch until need be?
You know what? I'm gonna let Bo answer that, because he's the one that went through it and done it, and he can definitely explain it as far as like what he felt and the transition that he could actually feel, with his body and stuff like that.
Yeah, to answer that question, Fred, I mean, it's funny because this is the only system that what Shannon was talking about when we were discussing how you're in the zone 1% to 2% of the time. So when it comes down to the shot that's coming up at hand, that's when, as soon as you do your trigger, which is backed off of the whole thing with Pavlov's dogs, and as soon as you do that, you're in the zone. And it's like at that point, nothing phases you because we've done enough mental imagery away from the course that we've practiced off the course. And then when it comes to actually putting in the practice and play, it's automatic. Why? Because we've done what I call, and I coined this phase, and we've been using this a lot in our community with our pin hunters. And that is, you got to train the dog within you. So you have to train the dog within you. And when you train the dog within you away from the course, doing the mental imagery, and this is stuff that U.S. Olympic athletes have done. It's one of the things that's very interesting. If people were paying attention to 2016, I think it was the Winter Olympics, there was like, Shannon could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was like seven sports psychologists or more that went with the teams, right? Yeah. And so they're doing the mental imagery side of it, but they're still missing one critical piece, and that is the piece that Shannon was able to figure out how to get people into the zone on a flip of a switch. So when it comes to can you turn it on and off, absolutely. And it's one of the things that's kind of cool because we tell our players, look, you can think about whatever the heck you want to think about in between shots because it doesn't matter. I mean, to an extent it can, but really it doesn't. If you have truly put in the work away from the course and you have trained yourself enough on the mental imagery, followed with a trigger, which then activates you into the zone. And when you can take that, and then as soon as you are starting your pre-shot routine using your trigger, you're in the zone. And a lot of that is still backed off of people have read this book, The Golfer's Mind by Bob Rotella. Awesome book. And if people remember in chapter 2, Bob is telling a story about Sam Snead. And what's funny was Sam Snead was one of the best players of all time. Him and Tiger are tied with the most PGA Tour wins. But what was funny is Sam Snead made a confession that day saying, Sam, I wish you were around back when I started struggling. Because he said when I played my best, I would go to bed each night doing my mental imagery, basically seeing myself playing every shot the night before, playing really well. And then he said I'd wake up the next day feeling refreshed, feeling great, and I go out and I play really well. And he said that was my key to my success.
Interesting. All right, guys. Well, the important part of this podcast is the fact that you have an announcement about summit, an online event, a webinar that you're doing, please, Bo, why don't you fill me in on the blanks here because I'm screwing it up completely.
So we are going to be launching this thing nationally. And what Shannon made a comment on, he kind of spilled the beans a little bit, but we've had 132 golfers go through what we would consider the beta launch of this program. We launched this back at the end of the Consistent Golf Summit. And so we had 132 golfers go through this beta phase. And what was amazing is every golfer that completed it, when we surveyed every single one of the players that went through it, we saw an average of 5.1 strokes dropped in 45 days or less.
Wait. 5, and are we talking high handicappers?
We're talking about high handicappers, your everyday player, that's like a 10 handicapper, and we also have tour players included in that data.
5 strokes in 45 days?
That is correct.
That is remarkable.
Yep.
That's a lot of strokes.
It is. Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things, like I've been in this game for a long time, teaching the game for a while, for 10 plus years. And we, like I shared with you, in my own personal golf school, Watson School of Golf, we've had a lot of success, but that type of success, that is something you just do not see. I would see that over the course of maybe 4 to 5 months. Okay. But in 45 days or less, you just don't see that. And here's the thing, I've experienced it personally, which is another reason why it doesn't come shocking to me, because I saw it in my own game personally. And it's one of those things where we saw, like, here's some of the cool testimonies we got. One of them was 79-year-old Lauren Matthews. And this guy, because one of the biggest things that everybody comes up with is like, will this work for, if I'm 75 or I'm 85 years old? Absolutely. Because Lauren Matthews, this is a guy that was shooting in the low 80s. And he's a good player, right?
Sure.
But here's the thing.
He's 79 years old shooting in the low 80s?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure he's broken his age.
And here's the cool thing. He goes through the program, and guess what? In his first month, he shot 69. He calls me. He got my phone number, and it was so funny because he leaves me a voicemail. I couldn't get it in time, but I listened to a voicemail and I called him back. But he said, "Bo, I got to tell you, I went out and played. I shot 69 today, and you got to understand, the last time I shot in the 60s was when I was a kid." And then
that is phenomenal.
Yeah, but here's the thing: he followed that up with 2 more rounds, 72, and then I think he shot 75. And these are all like back to back to back. And now he's consistently shooting scores. I believe last time I checked was between 74 and 77. Phenomenal for his age.
Yeah. Amazing. Isn't it the ultimate goal in golf is to be able to break your age?
Absolutely.
I mean, like, just to live long enough to do that and then go, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Hey, right. Here's the cool thing too. I want to add just like real brief what he said. So some of you might be out there like, man, do I have the skills to do this? Can I really get in the zone? Can I do that? Look, we're working with an 11-year-old kid that has dropped 10 strokes.
Shut up.
So seriously, yeah, 11. So here's my thing. And I've worked with an 11-year-old speed skater that did the same thing, that went from being last and almost a half a lap down to winning placing at nationals. So even if an 11-year-old kid can do it, and now you've got your, Lauren Matthews doing it. I mean, come on, it's simple.
Well, the amazing thing about this 11-year-old kid is he dropped 10 strokes wearing speed skates.
No, I'm talking.
Okay.
I got you. That was
just yanking your chain here, just messing with you a bit here. All right. So you guys are doing a In the Zone mental challenge free webinar.
Yep.
Tell me.
That is
when. How do we do this?
So that is going to be on September 2nd, and we will be doing a live
2020.
Yep, you got it. A live free training that will be at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's definitely something you will want to be there live for.
Okay, so there's not a ton of time, so I'm hoping people are going to listen to this and check it out. If you want to get to this webinar, the best thing to do is not Google it. Look at the show notes from today's show, or go to the blog post at golfsmarter.com from today's show, and the link will be in there. The reason I'm sending you through this link is because I want Bo to know how many Golf Smarter listeners are coming through Golf Smarter.
Yep.
And you should too. It's a great way to support Golf Smarter, but it's also a great way to know that he's talking to the right folks. All right. Well, so that free webinar, Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. Check your show notes here for the link on that. And I wish you guys the best of luck. It's a great story. I'm really intrigued by getting to be able to flip a switch and get into the zone. Shannon, amazing story. I'm so glad you're well and have succeeded and beat up little Shannon to become big Shannon and have success. Bo, it was great talking to you again. Thanks, too, Fred. Man. I'm glad things are going well.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Thanks for having us.
Fred. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
I just want to give you a quick update because I have received emails and heard from a lot of friends from around the country. Yes, there are fires going right near where I'm living that were started by these dry lightning strikes. As a matter of fact, that lightning storm occurred while I was sleeping outside. It was so hot that week that my wife and I were sleeping outside, and we were rudely awakened by the lightning and the strong winds that have now started fires all over the state. But we're safe. I appreciate your concern, but it's nasty. The weather, the air here has gotten pretty bad, so can't go out. As a matter of fact, I went out to play golf on Saturday, and after the 7th hole, the air got so bad we decided we're going to leave after 9, and I have not really been outside since. So thank you for the concern, but we're okay for now. Hey, so there's a link in today's show notes or at golfsmarter.com, the blog post for this episode that gets you to the free In the Zone Mental Challenge webinar that will occur on September 2nd, 2020 at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 a.m. Pacific. I'll also be sending out an email blast to you today with links so that you can get started. And actually, our next prize giveaway is from today's guest, Bo Watson, and the Consistent Golf Summit, and is worth thousands of dollars. The wonderful part of this prize is that it can only do one thing if you win: help you be a better golfer. The winner of this drawing will receive an all-access pass to the Consistent Golf Summit that happened months ago, that had 18 world-class experts reveal their secrets on how to build a consistent golf swing from scratch. The package includes unlimited access to 20 masterclass video sessions, 15-plus hours of masterclass audio sessions as MP3 files, and transcripts to those masterclasses, the 20 of them, and much, much more. Deadline to enter and win this incredibly generous offer from the Consistent Golf Summit is midnight Pacific Time, 3 a.m. Eastern, Sunday, September 6, 2020. To enter, go to golfsmarter.com and click on the Enter Now banner at the top of the page. But before you do that, we need to announce our winner of the Pro Training Aid courtesy of Dan Martin Golf from swingthepro.com. And in our conversation and my subsequent video with Dan talking about the Pro Training Aid, it seems so easy to get the hang of, but let me tell you, it's not so simple. But just like golf, we pursue it because it's hard, but it's worth it. Now, the prize that we're giving away this time, it includes my current favorite golf glove called the Claw, courtesy of CaddyDaddyGolf.com. And both of these items are giving exclusive Golf Smarter discounts, and you can find the links to those on our contest registration page. Again, it's golfsmarter.com/giveaway2020. So congratulations to Sam Knight of San Diego, California. Sam, I'm going to be sending you an email and copying both Dan at swingthepro.com and Rod at CaddyDaddyGolf.com so that you can get your prizes ASAP. Now, if you come to the contest page to register after each drawing, you'll notice that we have the next couple prizes already lined up. But like the aisles of Costco, these change regularly, and we've added some different, unique, and exciting prizes you won't want to miss. The next 3, this one, and then the next 2 are going to be awesome. I think you're going to love it. So once again, register to win now by clicking on the Enter Now banner at golfsmarter.com. And finally, this is my final offer for the year for you to get a free copy of Tony Manzoni's video, The Lost Fundamental, which is only available at golfsmarter.com. To get your free copy, all you need to do is a favor for me. Write an honest review about Golf Smarter or Golf Smarter Mulligans in Apple Podcasts or wherever you subscribe to either of these shows. Then, once you submit your review, share it with me via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or email, and I'll send you a link to Tony Manzoni's Lost Fundamental video. Now, don't forget, I appreciate you writing the review, but don't forget to tell me about it. I've had a couple people say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot to tell you that I wrote the review." I want to get these videos to you, and I appreciate your effort. To report your podcast reviews, please use @GolfSmarter on social media or just click on the Hey Fred button at golfsmarter.com.